Hey everyone! Well, January 1st, 2018 marks the 4-year anniversary of living this simple lifestyle on my tiny floating home. In years past, on this anniversary episode, I've talked about what I've done in the previous 12 months. Last year I gave an updated boat tour of my tiny home here, and this year I thought I would answer some of the most frequently asked questions that I've had over the past 4 years. Before I start the questions and answers, I thought I should remind everyone that I have a 1982 CNC 34. It's a sailboat built in Canada, and I've owned this boat since October of 2011 and been very happy with this boat. Some of you may not know that I actually bought this boat sight unseen, which is not something I recommend for everyone. It does take a little bit of work and research to do that, but I had been looking for a boat for about 2 years at the point that I found this one, and I was living in Prince Rupert, so most of my searches were restricted to online searches for boats. This one had been on the market for about 3 days. I called the broker, and the next day I called him back after giving it some thought about what we had discussed the night before, and I made the offer. The purchasing process takes about 2 weeks. There's surveys involved and other subjects that need to be removed, and as that 2 weeks progressed, I was more and more comfortable with making the purchase, and about a month later I saw the boat after I'd purchased it. I was looking for a boat not to make my home, just to have as a recreational item, and I wanted a racer cruiser, something that could perform but was also comfortable for cruising. Well, now on to the questions and answers. They aren't in any particular order, but they're the most often asked questions that I've had over the last 4 years. Have I thought of purchasing a larger sailboat, or do I plan on keeping this one long term? And of course I've looked at larger sailboats over the years, and I'll probably continue to look at larger sailboats as time goes on. But to be honest, I really like this boat, and I've had it over 6 years. I know the boat really well. It's large enough for me. It would even be large enough for 2 people on board. I don't know if I want anyone else to own this boat because I put so much time and energy and love into this boat that it would be really hard to see her go to someone else unless I knew for sure they were going to take very good care of her. It might be hard for some people to understand that, but if you've ever had a boat that you really love and had a lot of good times on and made a lot of memories with, then you will understand that. So that's probably the biggest thing that holds me back from purchasing another boat, is that I don't want to see this one go. So we'll see. To be determined. Now, this next question always gives me a little chuckle when I get it, because people seem very concerned when they ask it, and that is, are you not cold on the boat? The answer is no, not at all. I fully insulated the boat about 1.5 years ago. I have carpet and underlay on the cabin flooring that covers the hardwood flooring. With just this little fireplace running right now, it's about 18 degrees Celsius in here, and outside there's snow on the ground. So it's probably 0 degrees or -1 right now outside. And if I turn on my little electric space heater, which I have when I'm at the marina, it'll probably bump up to about 22 degrees Celsius in here in the next 30 minutes. So you have to keep in mind it's a small space and it doesn't take much to heat it up. And with the boat being insulated, it makes a big difference. The humidity is super low in this boat. It's about 40 to 44%, probably because of all the insulating I did. I have no condensation in the cupboards, and it's a very comfortable environment all year. So that's the answer to that question. Why did I move from Vancouver to Prince Rupert? Well, I lived in Prince Rupert before. I mentioned that I was here in Prince Rupert when I actually bought this boat, sight unseen. So I've lived on Canada's west coast my entire life. I've lived most of my life in the Vancouver area, and I was born in that area. But I did live up in this area for about 7 years. I lived on Haida Gwaii for 3.5 years, and I lived in Prince Rupert for 4 years. So I'm very familiar with the area, and the reason I moved up here is probably 2 reasons. One, I wanted to see more of Canada's coast and do a trip up here, but I was lucky enough to tie that in to a transfer with work, because I do have a job that allows me to move around. So that will probably bring us to the next question. Do I work? Or am I independently wealthy, or have a trust fund or something that allows me to cruise full-time? And I'll just clarify that I don't actually cruise full-time. I'm not independently wealthy. I don't have a trust fund. Yes, I do work. I think I get this question a lot because maybe there's people out there that are looking how to break free from that full-time employment to cruising full-time. But I'm somewhere in the middle there, because I work full-time, I live the lifestyle full-time, and I cruise part-time. I eventually want to not work, obviously, when I retire, but at that point I will be cruising full-time and focusing all my efforts and energy to cruising and documenting it on the way. That's probably a good segue to get to the next question, which is what do I do for work?
Thanks for being with us this Saturday morning. A shooting in Richmond is now a homicide investigation. The male victim was taken to hospital, where he later died of his injuries. The shooting happened at about 6 last night outside the Tim Hortons at the Ironwood Plaza on the Steveston Highway. The Integrated Homicide Investigation Team is now in charge of the case. A black Nissan pickup truck is riddled with bullet holes. Police were at the scene throughout the night and into the morning. Residents are shocked to see something like this happen in their neighborhood.
Well, if you didn't figure it out from the clip, I'll tell you that I'm a police officer. I work for the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. That's Canada's national police force. And I've been doing this job for about 15 years. For the past 8 years, I've specialized in our forensics section. That means I go to crime scenes and I process them and document forensic evidence at the scenes. Kind of like CSI, that's what most people relate it to. As you can imagine, doing this job, you see some of the worst things that people can do to each other. That's probably why I love sailing so much, because it gives me that work-life balance. You know, I work hard, I see things at work that most people don't want to see. But when I'm off, I'm living this simple lifestyle that really lets me disconnect. Of course, when I'm cruising, I'm even more disconnected, which is really my ultimate goal, is to do this for 10 more years, retire, and cruise full-time, and document my cruising full-time for everyone. Another question I get is, what do I use to film with? I started out with a little camcorder, JVC. It was very inexpensive, but it was waterproof, not high-end waterproof, but enough that if it took water on while it was mounted on the deck, I wouldn't be concerned. It didn't really do great quality filming, but it was autofocus, and I was just in the early stages of exploring this whole YouTube thing. And I had this camera here as well. It's a little DSLR Canon. It's a 60D. It does video as well as still images. And I used this a bit. It doesn't have autofocus, so I wasn't really using it a lot. But as time went on, I used it more and more because I really liked the images I could get with it. It's more of an artistic look. Yeah, so I used this camera for the last 4 years, and I've been using it a lot in the last couple of years, probably more than any other camera I have. I don't even use the camcorder anymore. It just doesn't do the type of filming I want it to do. Well, now you're probably wondering, if he just said he uses this camera all the time to film, how is he filming this right now? And I just recently purchased another Canon. It's the 80D. So it's the step up from this. This camera is quite old. It's probably 6 years old at least. Maybe even a bit older. It's kind of at the end of its life. It's not reliable. It was constantly stopping in the middle of filming, so I couldn't really trust it anymore. The other camera I use is my little GoPro. I didn't actually have a GoPro for the longest time. I only bought this last December, so I've only had it for 1 year. And it's the Hero 6 Black, or Hero Black 6. But I've been really happy with it. It just does some more of my static shots for time-lapse, or if I need wide angle, it's good for that too. And I have a little stabilizer for it. It's called Karma Grip, which is really cool. So if I'm walking, it keeps it stable. But that's not waterproof, so I don't use that in a wet environment. This is waterproof, just like this. And that's it, really. I don't really have anything fancy, but I'm really excited to use this new Canon 80D that I'm filming with right now, and hopefully I can get some good footage this next cruising season for you guys. That probably leads us right into what do I edit my films with, and I just use my MacBook Pro. It's got iMovie, and that's it. Nothing fancy at all. Well, getting back to the lifestyle that I'm living in a tiny floating home, and sort of generalized questions would be like, well, what are the advantages or disadvantages of living this lifestyle, or what do you like most, or what's the hardest part about it? And I would say probably the best thing about this lifestyle is the disconnect. And just the simple existence it gives you. When I lived here before I bought the boat, I had a big house. I sold it, and I downsized. When I moved back to Vancouver, I moved into a little apartment, but I had the boat, and I went from like a 3,000 square foot house to this 600 square foot apartment, and I was like, oh, this feels so much better. I could purge so much stuff. You have to be good at purging to do this, because you can't have a lot of clutter. You can't have a lot of extra things. And so probably getting to the best part of it is that you sort of feel like all this weight's lifted. You get rid of so much stuff that you have in your life, and you don't have the option to have it all. So, and for me, that really works. Maybe that wouldn't work for everybody, because maybe you might need stuff, but it really is a freeing feeling, like having so little. I even look at the car I have. I mean, I love my little car, as you may know if you've seen any of the other videos that my little car is in. But I just look at it. I don't even drive it at all much anymore, because I walk to work. It's about a 5-minute walk to work, and I can walk to Safeway. That takes about 6 minutes. That's our big grocery store. I could walk anywhere else in town within under 10 minutes, probably 15 minutes. So I do a lot of walking. I've really simplified my life by living this lifestyle for so long now. And I've even looked at like getting rid of my cell phone, and you sort of start to get in this mindset that, what do you really need in life to have a comfortable existence? The worst thing maybe about this lifestyle is I can't really think of something right now, so I don't have that answer. Yeah, I don't know. I just, the longer I've done this, the more I love it. And it probably goes to that looking at larger boats question earlier. Like, I feel like I have enough already, and like, how much more do I need? Because if I get a bigger boat, that means I'm going to get more stuff. To live this lifestyle on a boat, I do recommend you get a little locker. For me, I have my snow tires in there, my skis, camping equipment, just a few things that I need to keep for other activities I like to do, or my snow tires for my car. It's just a very small locker. When I retire in 10 more years, I am going to get rid of my car for sure, because I don't even want it anymore, and I'm going to cruise full time, so I don't know where I'll be. I'll just have to get rid of that other stuff and figure it out. But that's a little ways down the road, so not too concerned about that yet. Well, I'll probably wrap this up with one last question that I'm often asked, and that is, what are my long-term plans? And that's actually quite a complex question, because there's several angles on that. I guess I'll start with lifestyle. I plan to continue to live this lifestyle. I have no intentions of moving back into a house. It just doesn't work for me. I've been doing this for 4 years. I love it. I'm not saying this is for everyone, but I find that I think people are very adaptable, and I just can't imagine having more than this, which brings me to the next part, like, am I going to get a larger sailboat? I just look at what I have now, and I don't really know if I need more. So we'll see about that part. Definitely the lifestyle, possibly or possibly not larger sailboat. The next part of it would be, do I plan to stay in Prince Rupert long term? The answer is no. I came up here for a time commitment that I agreed to, and I'll probably stick with that, and then I'll move back to either Vancouver or Vancouver Island or something, probably on Canada's west coast because of the way I live. I can't imagine I would move anywhere else in Canada because it just wouldn't work for my living arrangements. I'll continue working. I have 10 years left before I retire. I'll have a pension. At that point, I plan to cruise full-time and document it full-time. So I'm very excited for that time to come. It seems like a lifetime away though, 10 years, but I'm going to really welcome that day when it arrives. I will probably cruise on Canada's west coast for a couple of years at that point. It depends on how much I've seen. If I sort of feel between now and that time, if I've seen enough of the coast, or if I've seen as much as I've wanted to see, then I may just start preparing the boat to head south. With that said, I'm preparing the boat now already for long-term cruising and long-distance cruising. I'm trying to make it ready so when that day comes, I could go if I wanted to. I don't want to get to 10 years and then say, okay, now I got to prep it to go offshore or go long distance. I know this isn't a blue water boat. I've had many people tell me that, and really I don't want to cruise around the globe nonstop for 12 months. Like, I want a coastal cruise. I want to go down North America's coast, either all the way down to Panama, go through Panama Canal, or go down to Mexico and then head west to Hawaii, or on to New Zealand, Australia. Like, so really, like, I think about 10% of the time is my idea of being in blue water, and 90% of the time coastal cruising in different parts of the world and experiencing those places. So we'll see if this is the boat that I do it in, but at this point that's the plan, and I don't know. It's a long ways away to answer that one really accurately. So hopefully that answered some of the most common questions I have gotten over the last 4 years, and I want to say big thank you to everyone that follows the channel, who leaves positive comments and supportive comments about this journey I've been on. Just showing support by leaving a positive comment and by meeting people in person. You know, that's really what I'm in this for, is networking and meeting some awesome people. I just met someone last week. He came up from Prince George. Really nice to meet you, Barry. That's really the biggest payoff for me, is just meeting some really awesome people that share the same passion as I do for sailing and cruising wherever you are in the world. I want to say a huge thanks to the Patreons that I have. The camera I'm filming this on right now, the Canon 80D, was just purchased with funds from Patreons and from the little bit of money I make from the YouTube royalties from monetizing the videos. Fair winds to everyone in 2018, and I'm very excited to see what 2018 will bring for cruising, for not just myself but for everyone else out there, and for other channels that I follow. So all the best, and we will see you soon. Thanks for sticking around for so long, and hope you guys will stick around for the rest of this adventure.